Beaver Dam Brook was tucked away behind the old Dodge farm in Rollinsford. Although the area was known as a party spot for local teens, it was also known to some as a fishing hole. On April 18, 1987, a local man intent on whiling away some time fishing headed down the old logging road off Rollins Road and set out for the brook. As he approached, he stopped to look at some old farm equipment, remnants of the former working farm, which dated back to before the Civil War. The man's curiosity, though, led to a grim find. Tucked in against a partially collapsed stone wall, a human skull poked out from the earth and brush. Rollinsford and state police converged on the old farm, taping off the area as a crime scene. By the next day, Sunday, April 19, 1987, they had identified the remains. 20-year-old Lisa Snyder hadn't been seen for nearly 2 years. In the summer of 1985, her employer, Sprague Electronics in Concord, closed up for a few weeks, and she left her apartment in Bow to visit her sister in Dover. It was summer, and during her break from work while staying with her sister, Lisa would hitchhike back and forth from her sister's South Pine Street apartment to Hampton Beach. Lisa was originally from Franklin, New Hampshire. Her mother had died from cancer in 1970 when Lisa was only 6 years old. When her father remarried 7 years later, Lisa was a teenager and was already showing a rebellious streak. She would run away to Arizona but returned to New Hampshire a short time later. By 1985, Lisa was living on her own on Bow Bog Road in Bow and working full-time at Sprague Electronics. On July 4th, 1985, Lisa and her sister had plans to go out in Dover that night, but the plans fell apart. Lisa said she would venture out on her own and planned to find a way to the Norseman Lounge on the opposite end of the city for a few drinks. And with that, her sister watched Lisa walk away down South Pine Street. Lisa wouldn't make it to the Norseman Lounge, which it turns out was closed for the holiday weekend. When Lisa didn't return, and by the next week when she hadn't returned to work where a paycheck awaited, her sister called police and filed a missing person report. The bulletin was sent out nationwide. Lisa Snyder, described as 5'5", 120 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes, had last been seen in Dover on July 4, 1985. She had been wearing a jean jacket, blue jeans, black boots, and a white and purple blouse. The missing persons poster appeared in Dover stores throughout the city. Dover police had already opened an investigation. For months, police followed up on a variety of leads. There were reports that Lisa had been spotted at Hampton Beach later that summer. A jail in New Jersey reported that a woman named Lisa Snyder had called the facility to inquire about visiting an inmate, but never showed up. Her boss at Sprague Electronics had said she had seen Lisa at the Hopkinton Fair. In November 1985, 2 bodies were found in a 55-gallon drum in Allenstown near Bear Brook State Park. The bodies were an adult female and young girl, both beaten to death. Police at the time said they were investigating whether one of the bodies was Lisa's, but later that month they had determined that neither was Lisa. Dover police continued to follow up on leads, but came up empty-handed. It was nearly 2 years without answers when, on April 18, 1987, Lisa's body was discovered in Rollinsford near a brook at a popular party spot in the woods. An autopsy of the skeletal remains by the state medical examiner would determine that Lisa had been strangled to death. The case became a homicide investigation. Rollinsford police reviewed calls from the summer of 1985, hoping there might be clues that led to a suspect. There had been calls about teenagers partying at the old Dodge farm, but nothing that turned up any useful information. Police even wondered publicly if Lisa had been murdered by a serial killer, then serving time in a Massachusetts prison. But those leads dried up too, and once again, Lisa's family was left looking for closure. Years passed, and hope for a resolution began to dim. But 11 years later, in 1998, police thought they might have a break in the case. That year, while questioning Ed Piawick about the murder of Carol Caswell, who was killed at Willen Pond in Somersworth 2 years earlier, police discussed with Piawick other potential victims. During the interview, Piawick, who had a history of violence against women, led police to believe he was also responsible for the murder of Sheila Holmes in Dover in 1990. Like Sheila, Lisa's murder fit a pattern for Piawick. Police asked him if he was also responsible for that murder. Piawik admitted he was familiar with the location where Lisa's body was found, one of many tucked-away spots he would frequent to drink and take drugs, but he maintained he wasn't the killer. Police weren't so sure. Piawik would be tried and convicted for the murder of Carol Caswell in 1999 and sentenced to life in prison. He has not been charged with any other murders, including Sheila Holmes and Lisa Snyder. For now, those families continue to wait for answers. Lisa Snyder's murder remains the only unsolved homicide in Rollinsford and an official cold case with the New Hampshire Attorney General's Cold Case Unit. Know something about this case? Contact the Cold Case Unit at 603-271-2663 or by email at coldcaseunit@dos.nh.gov.